Hello, I'm Tolu, also known as the Podfather, and I'm the host of What Makes You Tick.
Tick, tick, boom! I had to give that.
Then.
Do you know what? I had to do it, Tolu. It's been a while since we did it. And we've got James on this week. And James is someone that I WhatsApp most days.
Okay.
And I tell you what, of all the people on LinkedIn, and there are many, and there are a lot of content producers, I think James's content is the most useful and practical sales content that I see. Every day, there's a video of James walking down the beach of Portsmouth, giving some absolutely no fluff, proven sales strategies that people absolutely love. And he's taken this leap to go and move from the, sales leadership world into actually giving back in coaching and developing salespeople, sales leaders. He's got the university, he's got his consultancy company. There's so much that this guy understands, and he's not just keeping it to himself, he's sharing it with the world. So I really believe that anyone who's in sales leadership or is an individual contributor and wants to go and get some brilliant examples of what it takes to be a highly successful sales leader in today's market, the skills you need, the psychology, the techniques, there's no one better you could be following on LinkedIn right now. So without further ado, let's roll the VT.
James, welcome to What Makes You Tick. It's great to have you on the podcast.
I'm looking forward to the chat. Thanks for having me on.
Me too. So what makes you tick, James?
I think in business, probably working alongside somebody that's really struggling, spending good quality time with them and seeing them, get themselves off of a pip or, get promoted or earn the money that they want to earn. I think there's nothing more satisfying as a sales leader than kind of helping somebody or a team turn it around. For me, I think that's what probably makes me tick in work, yeah.
Okay. And what's your favorite turnaround story?
One of my recent teams that I inherited, great bunch of people selling a great product to great customers. But I think like a lot of us see when we're out there speaking to organizations is this lack of playbook and structure, like that dotted line that reps need to follow from talking to a complete stranger for the very first time through to getting a completed DocuSign back and moving the deal into close one in the CRM. So kind of great bunch of people, super motivated, wanted to win, just lack of playbook and strategy and direction really. Kind of average target attainment was about 40%. Lots of kind of spray and pray and, cookie cutter kind of outbound, again, what we all see and what we all receive. Right, and went in and spent hours every single day training, role-playing, coaching in one-on-ones, that kind of stuff, building kind of isolated coaching plans. And the next quarter, I think the lowest attainment was 119% and highest was 240%.
Wow.
And it was all of them because they had such fantastic work ethic, they had a good attitude, they wanted to be successful. I hear so much now in the world that I live in now, there's pockets in the organization of people that are desperate to be great. They're an SDR. They don't want to be an SDR forever. I don't think anyone signs up and says, hey, I want to build a career as an SDR. Most of the time they want to go to AE or SDR manager or, account management or marketing or whatever it might be. So they had a lot of good things going for them and they just needed that direction and, big pair of arms around them and a bit of TLC and things like that. They had all of the tools really. They just needed to know how to use them and when to use them. So yeah, that's probably what I'm most proud of.
That's amazing. And where did you realize that this was a gift that you had to be able to do that?
I think kind of that trigger moment was in my last role where, when I started out in sales 10, 12, 13 years ago, we didn't call them SDRs, we called them telemarketing agents and using a call center, smashing the phones 200 times. There's no Salesforce or anything like that. So what I found over the years, everywhere I went, the playbook or the strategy and the play just got a little bit better every time. I was terrible at closing at first, so I just got obsessed with prospecting because I know if I had more opportunities around me, I would trip over some deals, and then while I'm focusing on discovery and demo and negotiation, stuff like that. But I think every role I went to, that got better. I just started swapping out the variables for the company's context and plugging those in, and then just leaning on what I'd known had been working in the past, and then moved into sales leadership and did the same thing there. And then my last role kind of took that playbook, swapped out the variables. And I was like, this must just be a thing that just seems to be working. Maybe I can go and do this thing with lots of different people rather than one team at a time.
And you mentioned about, you weren't as strong of a closer as you were as prospecting. I'd love to understand a bit more about how you learned how to close and what are some of the things that you had to grow in to become a better closer? Because now you're running your own business, so you have to be able to close.
Yeah, totally. I think there's lots of free content out there. I think there's a lot of noise out there as well. So I think you've got to be careful with what information you consume. Taking something from a rep at Salesforce could be damaging if you're in a scrappy startup in a new category, right? So consuming a lot of content, kind of probably working very unsociable, unhealthy hours to kind of get ahead of the curve. But yeah, asking for lots of feedback, raising my hand. Hey, I ran this discovery call. Can we just spend some time listening to it with my manager? Like, be brutally honest with me. Like, tell me where I'm going wrong. I don't need this nice kind of fluffy stuff. Don't worry, you're not going to scare me off, or I'm not going to quit if you give me brutal honest feedback. Just tell me how it is, kind of thing. Making loads of mistakes. I've got so many scars from making those mistakes, missing targets, missing quotas, getting very frustrated, all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, just being obsessed with wanting to be great. Didn't have a great kind of start, at school, didn't do very well at school, didn't get any qualifications or anything like that. So kind of knew that I had to knuckle down and take this thing seriously. Otherwise, I was never going to get out of that SDR telemarketing role, making 200 cold calls a day, wondering if you're going to have a job come Monday, high intense, high stress kind of thing. So yeah, just being obsessed with learning, reading lots of books, listening to lots of podcasts. Mainly back then it was like YouTube videos. And some of the mistakes that I made doing that then was like trying to like emulate different people and realizing that, that's not my personality, or like that's, I can't pretend to be them. So kind of taking little bits that I really like from everyone and kind of making my own with my own personality and swagger and things like that, and figuring out.
Were there any of those little tips that really made a big difference? So like, was there something that you were doing that was hindering you, or was it just the combination of all those little bits?
Yeah, I think the light bulb moment for me is what I see a lot of sales reps struggle with today. It's still a thing today, is their new hire onboarding is usually focused around product. Hey, here's a product we sell. This is what we think our differentiators are. This is how you do the demo. Here's a Salesforce. Here's a phone. Here's Zoom. Go and sell a load of stuff, right? And the problem is then reps don't really know the customer's profile, understand their world, so they then struggle to get into the weeds of their business. They then don't build trust and credibility and stuff. So they end up just like doing something that your knowledge base can probably do for them, right? You end up talking at them. So yeah, I think the thing for me was I started to ban like doing demos on discovery calls.
Okay.
I think unless you're selling something like Calendly that's like $5 and like,
yeah,
right? Most of us aren't selling that. So I started to ban myself from doing demos and discovery calls, being obsessed with the customer's outcomes that they're trying to achieve, and then booking in a demo and wrapping the solution around that. That's probably the biggest thing that was letting me down, because again, people trained me, hey, here's a product, this is how it works, these are the features, these are the talk tracks kind of thing. Back in the day, we had like printouts, so like you literally had a script. This was back when GoToMeeting and no one ever used to put their cameras on. So you were like, okay, I'm on screen 2. Here's the 5 bullet points, right? Yeah, any questions? Yeah. Okay, screen 3. Right. So like, that's what we were taught. So, no wonder I wasn't closing anything. I was just talking at people.
And I wanted to go back to something that you said about prospecting. So you said that was the thing that you really enjoyed. What would be your like top tips for someone who doesn't enjoy prospecting that can make it more fun and more effective?
So if you're working in a team of people, like have some fun. Like some of the things we used to do is like try and get like Michael Jackson lyrics into cold calls.
Okay.
And it was just so much fun. Like, and every now and then people would kind of catch on, right? Especially if the call went on for a while. Most of the time the people had no idea, and then you'd come off and everyone would be laughing. And it is a tough job. Very few people actually enjoy it. I quite enjoy it because I find it such a competition of turning a complete stranger into agreeing to hang out and spend 20 minutes with you, especially someone that's very senior, because until you become a buyer, you don't realize how bad someone's calendar usually looks. So like to cram 20 minutes with you, it's tough, right? So I find that a real challenge, probably as much of a rush as getting a completed DocuSign back. That's just my personal opinion, but like to have some fun with it, enjoy it, like listen back to your calls, role play. I remember going into meeting rooms on my own with my script and recording myself, listening back to my tone and pace and going like, smile or something, you sound miserable, no one's going to want to talk to you. Or you might be able to tell if you're listening to this, I speak really fast. So like when I'm on a call with a customer, I like have to like be really conscious of like my pace.
Okay.
Otherwise, they ask me to repeat myself, and then I've lost control, and then I'm going back over things. I sound scripted, and never went well. So yeah, just like have fun with it. Know that your job isn't to convince 100% of the people you speak to come and buy something. Your job is to plant some problems if they attach to it, tell a great customer story, inspire them to take action. And some people want to come on their journey with you and some won't. And that's okay. I think a lot of people get emotionally connected to the outcome. And I think that's when people start enjoying it.
100%. Because it is tough. And you do have to be able to persevere through. So it's almost like some of the mind games you have to play to get yourself over that hump of it.
Yeah, 100%.
And how did you actually get into sales? What's the like whistle stop tour of your career in sales?
Do many people answer this question by saying, "Yeah, I had this clear plan at school to be a salesperson." Right? I don't think so. I started off as a labourer on a building site, carrying bricks and cement and roof tiles up a ladder. It was really nice in the summer because it was good weather, got a good tan, felt like a good workout. I was young, wanted to go out and stuff like that. Felt like I was earning a lot of money compared to my friends at the time that were going to university. So yeah, that was all good fun. And then the winter, it was just, pretty miserable.
Horrible. Yeah,
really bad, cold, early starts. So yeah, and then I saw like an advert in the newspaper that this company, I think they were kind of a pyramid scheme, but this company was looking for salespeople to go knock on people's front doors at home and sell them Battersea Dogs and Cats Home, British Red Cross, those kind of charity things. And I thought the money looked pretty good. There was no basic salary. It was all commission only, but the numbers looked pretty good. And it was pretty cold at the time. So I thought, well, let's give this a go. And yeah, never looked back.
Were you good at it to begin with, or did you have to learn?
No, I was terrible at first. Yeah, terrible. Really, really bad. Luckily, every morning you had to go into the office and they did like in-person role plays. You actually even pretended to knock on somebody's front door and someone was looking at how like you're ready for them to answer the door and that kind of stuff. So body language and things. But yeah, I was terrible at first and then got pretty good. And then the winter season kicked back in again. And when you're in a suit and you're in the rain knocking on people's doors, it's not many people want to let you in. I was like, I got to get back. I got to get into an office somewhere. And that's kind of where my inside sales kind of career started.
And what are some of the things that you've kept from that time in door-to-door sales that still help you now?
Yeah, like thick skin. Like you never really go knocking on, really rich houses because they've got big gates that won't let you in. Rich people never wanted to give their credit card details to a complete stranger, knocking on their door, which makes sense. I probably wouldn't want to do the same now. But like you're in a, I don't know, maybe you're in like a residential area. It's 8:00 at night. You've got a bit of paper with a couple of, front door numbers where they're like, the bloke was home at 1:00 when you not said, come back when my wife's back. She'll be back. The kids will be down at 8:30. Everyone's queuing at the bus stop because no one had cars then, couldn't afford them. And then you're like, do I go and knock on that door? It's like 3 streets away. It's raining. And then you go and do it, right? And you get the deal. And the deal's like £20 a month or something, right? To British Red Cross. But to you, you're like an absolute hero. You get back to the office and everyone's got to come in and ring the bell. And you ring the bell so hard that you rip it off the wall. So like a lot of that stuff, like persistence, being gritty, staying in the game, like putting 100% into everything. You might not get the result that you want, but as long as you finish the game 90 minutes, if you're a football fan and you're like, hey, we might not have won, but we left everything out there. Like there was nothing left to give. I think that helped me when I went into new roles. And then when I got into leadership and, you think it's tough as a seller, you might get some training as a seller. When you become a leader, pretty much nothing.
No.
So you have to have the thick skin. You have to be gritty. You got to put everything into it. Otherwise you'll never survive.
I think that's one of my personal bugbears, right? Is that you get promoted because you're really good at doing something. So like in sales, you get promoted because you smash targets, you're good at selling. But that doesn't mean that you're going to be a good leader. And you rarely get training for the leadership part.
Yeah, totally. And I think a lot of salespeople get into leadership for the wrong reasons. If you're thinking about it and you're listening to this and it's, I want to become a VP of sales and I want the job title and I want to go to the exec meetings that, look super fun, you'll learn very quickly you don't want to go to any of those meetings.
No, they're not actually as fun as people think.
No, they're not. They're usually pretty intense and pretty stressful and usually pretty boring.
Yeah.
And you'll do everything to not go to them so you can spend time out selling. But unfortunately, a lot of your time gets pulled into those. So yeah, if that's what you're thinking is because it's a great title and the money's great. If you're a really good rep, you could probably earn more than most sales managers. So just really, I think a big mistake a lot of reps make is they don't really know what it's like to be a manager. And then a lot of them, I think, really, really hate. I mean, I had someone message me the other day saying, what do you think it would look like if I went from being a manager back to an AE? I'm like, I wouldn't care. Like, go and do what makes you happy. And right, if you're not happy being a manager, you know, he's not very old. He's like in his 30s. I'm like, you've probably got another 30, maybe 40 years or something of that pain. I would get out of there quick if you're not enjoying it now.
Yeah. And I think that's something that is brave about people that are willing to do that. And that translates into so many other things as an employee. So yeah, I think it makes total sense. When did you start leading people in your sales career?
I think I was 28.
Oh, wow.
29, something like that. Yeah, my first kind of out and out. I did like little pockets of like pods, like, buddy system, new hires and things like that. But I was never really accountable for those people. I was just helping out. Yeah, probably when I was like 28, almost 29.
And what was that like for you? What was that experience like?
Terrifying, because I'd always really worked in scrappy startups. I mean, I did some time in BT, and I was completely, uncomfortable. There was just too many people, and everything was too perfect. Like, here's a PowerPoint on your desktop. If you follow it, you'll win. If you don't, you lose. And I kind of like the building and breaking and part of things. So went to startups, and then my first leadership role was in a HR tech company startup. Pandemic had just hit. One of the companies I was working for basically put like all of the sales organization onto furlough. We were selling car data, so basically, giving that information to organizations to offer services. Nobody was driving because they weren't allowed to, so there was nothing to sell. There was no data, so kind of wasn't too worried about that. It wasn't their fault. It was just the way of the world. And then one of my customers that I'd sold ABM to a few years before just sold his business and joined a VC firm and said, hey, there's a company we just invested in that are looking for a sales leader. And although you haven't done it before, I think you might be a good fit. Had a chat with the CEO. We were really aligned. He's got really good experience from building other companies, and thought that's somebody I could definitely go and work with. And we had a lot of fun for 2 years, but the first couple of months were terrifying.
What are some of the things you had to learn to become a good sales leader?
I don't think I realized it till a little bit later in that role, but like leading from the front, in both roles I was selling, and even in both roles I still made cold calls, like not as many as the reps did, but I kind of realized over time that if I wanted to ask the team to do something different or to like dig deep in an area when times are tough, like I have to be in the position to do it with them, for them to kind of follow me into war, I guess, or into the trenches. I also found by doing that kind of stuff, like running discovery, doing demos, building a business case, negotiating a deal, all of that kind of stuff, on top of like recruiting and onboarding and coaching and the exact kind of stuff, it helped me find all the bottlenecks that I needed to like remove, right? And what the friction was when the sellers are going out there and trying to sell, like how do I make them more effective? How do I make their life easier? Look at the CRM and there's like 100,000 records in there and probably 40% of it's out of date. Like,
wow.
Go and try and build a list in there and see what it's like to go and execute outbound when you're continuously getting this person's left the business, this person no longer works in, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think some of the things that I had to learn was obviously like how to recruit, how to onboard, how to train, how to coach, how to run a one-on-one, how to set goals, like all of that kind of stuff. And most of the time it was reading a book or watching a YouTube video or reading a blog or following people on LinkedIn or whatever it might be. And then it's a little bit different when you're doing it with people. If it's with customers, we don't want to be practicing our customers, but I think it's harder when you're a leader. I've kind of have a lot of empathy for a lot of sales leaders because a lot of the time they're practicing these skills on people. And those people are looking up to them. Like no one ever really looks down. Everyone always looks up, right? And they're looking up at their sales leader thinking, I want to be that person one day. And, they're like practicing how to run a one-on-one or how to have a really tough conversation around performance or attitude or whatever it might be. And, a lot of that stuff I had to learn on the roll, and probably had a lot of crap conversations with people who probably on the receiving end of that. Probably listen to this and think, yeah, you did a terrible job at first. Probably still not perfect to this day, right? None of us are, but yeah, it's tough for sure. I think there needs to be more enablement out there for frontline managers.
I think vulnerability sometimes comes into it. So I remember when I was a first-time leader, I had many conversations with my team where it's like, look, I'm learning this as I go along. So I need lots of feedback from you. I'm not going to be perfect, so I need help. Like I had lots of that, and I had a great team, and I think sometimes people are scared to have those conversations because it looks like, well, but you're the leader, you should know. But I think some of that vulnerability could be really helpful.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are proud, right? And a lot of people are scared to ask for help because they're like, maybe I'll look weak in the organization or whatever. But I think it's the complete opposite. That's why I love what I do now. Like when sales leaders, come to me and say, hey, we're really struggling. We've got a team of 10 people or 20 people or 30 people and we need some help. Like both of the roles, the sales leadership roles I had, I outsourced some training in both of them, spent, good money doing that because I didn't want them to ever feel like they weren't getting enough support and enablement. And sometimes you go through times in business where you've got to be a bit obsessed in recruitment and the existing team then doesn't take a back seat, but you just can't afford, there's not enough time to spend time with them. So I always thought like, if I can't spend time with them for the next 2 weeks, 2 months, because I'm busy in recruitment or planning or doing whatever, like how can I invest in them, not just with my time, but in other resources. So they
love that.
Yeah. They felt like they were important and they were being looked after.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And it's important to think a little bit outside of the box than traditionally what you would do. So you mentioned really briefly like what you do now. What is it that you do now?
So there's kind of 2 lines of business that I've been playing around with. One of them I'm more passionate about than the other, just because I can reach more people. And that's kind of why I started the business. So let's talk about the business side. So there's a couple of layers. One is fractional. So I've got a customer at the moment that I work a couple of days a week with, where I come in and help them operationalize the playbook, hire, recruit, coach, build strategy, figure out, go to market, that kind of stuff. Really enjoy that part of the job. Like I said earlier, I like to build and break and figure things out. I come into an organization and it's all kind of structured there, like happy to get involved, but it doesn't kind of fire me up and drag me out of bed every morning. And then other stuff I do with like business is like workshops. So I was in London yesterday delivering discovery training with a team of 15, 20 sellers. I've got a couple of customers where I help them deploy and implement MEDDIC sales methodology, which I love. And then every now and then, like I just do some like ad hoc coaching or training for frontline sales manager, head of sales has just been promoted, or maybe a sales leader's got a couple of people on their team that are struggling but don't have the capacity. So I'll kind of just do some coaching or some training with those group of people. So there's that kind of side. And then the other side that I'm really passionate about, that I'm kind of trying to build up awareness around, is this trading platform called the Sales University.
Okay.
Something that kind of I stumbled across years ago was that none of us get a degree in B2B sales. We stumble into it, right? Yeah. And like there's legal teams and HR teams, they'll get certified, right? They're accredited, all that kind of stuff. They have to go through exams. And we don't get that in sales. We get given Salesforce, a phone, a product and a target and told to go out and take over the world. And it's no surprise that most people struggle. And on top of that, companies don't do enough to train their people and coach their people. So I wanted to build a training platform. It started off with like courses with like video lessons of like how to build sales positioning and sales messaging, how to make a cold call, how to deliver a discovery call, how to build a business case with your champion. So that, because a lot of people know what to do, they don't really know how to do it. So I wanted to give them the how part of what to do. And then it moved more into community. People had loads of questions. People wanted to do live Q&As. People wanted resources and things like that. So it's kind of moving away from a trading platform now into like a community where people can hang out, ask questions that they might not want to stick on LinkedIn because their boss might see it. So they want to do it in like a safe and controlled space. So those are kind of the 2 areas that I'm playing around with now. It's all just me on my own. Kind of want to keep it that way for a little while, but you never know what's around the corner. You might stumble across some great talent.
If you had to like really concisely describe the problem that you like to solve, how would you describe it?
The one thing I kind of stumbled across there is nobody gets a degree in B2B sales. So the big problem I see in B2B today is when I go and have a one-on-one or when I do a team training, when I talk about some of the basic stuff, like even like setting an agenda at the beginning of a call, or like when somebody asks a question on a demo, hey, that's a really interesting question. Do you mind if I ask? Like, just before I jump into it, like, where did that even come from? Like, because we're obviously not in that area of the demo right now. Like, why did you ask about Slack integration? When I talk about those kind of like basic things in sales teams, like most of the time it's like deer in headlights.
Yeah.
And that's the big problem, is that we're all out there trying to hit big numbers in really like strange times, but nobody's really being taught how to do that stuff. And then none of it's being, and when they do eventually get some training, I stumbled across this really interesting research a while ago called the forgetting curve. And it's like up to 90% of information is forgotten within 7 days.
Wow.
Which is like reinforcement is so important. So like we train you on discovery today. Let's for the next 6 to 12 weeks, let's just get obsessed with discovery. Let's do lots of role play. Let's do lots of call coaching. Let's do lots of workshops. And so we can really drive change and adoption and start to see positive impact on those metrics that are important, which is why we did the training in the first place. So yeah, I think the big problem that most sales organizations face, because mine faced it as well, is that there's just not enough training and accreditation and like being certified to go and sell. I think we can probably all change that. We're, like every organization has got sales managers or sales leaders, obviously very early stages, like founder led. But for the ones that have got sales leaders, like our job at the end of the day, for me anyway, is to make our people great. Like that's our number one job. It's like having kids. Like your job when you've got kids is to like make sure they grow up with really good manners and they get a good education and they become really great people, when they go out into the big bad world. So it's the same with new hires. Like when you've got a new rep on your team or you inherit a team, you've now got 5 or 6 kids. They might not stay with you forever, right? They might leave and go to somebody else, but your job at the end of the day is to make those people great and inspire them and motivate them and build a great culture and all that kind of stuff. And I just don't see that happening enough in especially in B2B.
And how did you decide to step out on your own and go fractional and start building these different parts of the business? Was that a tough decision?
It was a scary decision because my partner we were like having a baby like 3 months time, and we were just walking down the beach having a coffee and a chat, and I was doing some like ad hoc coaching early in the morning or late at night with some reps or some sales leaders that were just I just started posting. Last July I started posting on LinkedIn. People then started to ask, hey, I like your stuff. Like, do you do any coaching or anything? So I was just doing like little coaching gigs here and there. And then the feedback I was getting, a couple of weeks later, a couple of months later, hey, this seems to be really resonating. I've got promoted or I got myself off a PIP or whatever. And I was just saying to my partners, I'm walking down the beach, like I don't want to be a VP forever. I'm not super fired up about, doing this sales leadership thing forever. I kind of want to do my own thing at some point. And you asked a question earlier about like, when did I start to realize this was all coming together? I was like, everything I seem to talk to people about, not that I've got any like major secrets, it's just doing the basics consistently and layering in some of the advanced stuff in every now and then seemed to resonate with people. And I just said to her, I said, I know it's crazy that you go out to have a baby in a couple of months' time, but I think this kind of is going to kind of be the perfect time for it as well, because like I have to make it work, right? You're not going to be working for a year. I'm not going to have an income coming, so I have to figure it out. I think it helped. I'm quite sensible with money, so I wasn't like worried about like running out of cash in month 2.
Yeah.
But I also didn't want to eat into all of my hard-earned savings that I'd like worked crazy hours for every week to earn. So yeah, it was definitely a stressful decision, but I also felt really comfortable walking away from my team, because when I was going into one-to-ones with them or coaching sessions or whatever, and I'm like, hey, I listened to that call with so-and-so account. What do you think I'm going to say? And they instantly picked up on the thing.
That's
right?
a job.
And I'm like,
that is a job.
Like, you don't need me anymore. Like, you're kind of ready. Yeah. You're 18 now. You're ready to go out into the big bad world. You can get a job and, survive 24 hours, right? So I thought those guys are in a good place, really great bunch, had a lot of time for them, still connected with a lot of them today. And I'm passionate about the problem that I want to solve. Think I back myself, think I can solve it. Never going to solve it for everybody, right? But people that are motivated to solve it, I think I can help them out. And yeah, I've never looked back, and it's been a super exciting ride over the last maybe 12 months, 11 months, something like
that. So almost a year in, what would you like the business to look like, say, 5 years from now?
I kind of alluded to it earlier. Like, I'm happy like riding solo at the moment. I'm learning a lot. Like, I never thought about like accounting. It's just right. Maybe you've got some secrets for me or some like tips or something like that. But
outsource
that's it. Yeah, I've started doing that. Yeah.
That's the only thing you can do with accounting. Outsource it.
No. Even like invoicing, like I do everything up front. Every now and then you have to chase people. It's like remembering to do that. Like when you're at work and you're employed, like people send you your salary, they take the tax and NI and do all of that kind of stuff for you.
Beautiful. Yeah.
It's lovely, right?
Yeah.
Now it's like got to do that. marketing, like posting on socials. I don't use social media, so I don't use Instagram, Facebook, don't have TikTok, don't have Twitter. So posting on LinkedIn was a new thing for me. I'm still trying to figure that stuff out, which for me is fun because it's another challenge, right? Like cold calling was back in the day, trying to convince a stranger who's very senior to give me 20 minutes. Like I found that a real challenge. Like now, how do I get eyeballs on my content? How do I get people that were not even connected to raise their hand and say, hey, let's chat. Can I buy some stuff? So building a website, like all of this is just like learning. So like, it's good fun, but at some point it's going to get to a point where like I'm like pretty okay at it. Let's just bring in some experts now to run brand or content. I probably won't need to bring in someone for finance for a long time because I can outsource that for a while. But like, what about like account management, maybe to manage some customers, or like someone to do some project management stuff or something? But I don't know, in 5 years that could look like that. It might just be me grinding it out still. And my son will be 5, nearly 6 at that point. So he's almost ready to make cold calls probably at that age. So there's a cheap SDR. Wash the cars. I'll make some cold calls and I'll give you some pocket money.
Yeah. I love that.
We'll see.
I love that. On the cold calling, let's say that I'm an AE. How would you coach me through or advise me on cold calling? Because I think that's something that a lot of people are quite scared of. And also in this world that, AI is everywhere, there's lots of content and stuff like that. I think people are moving a little bit away from cold calling, but I think it's still really powerful. How would you coach me through, my first cold call, or how would you suggest I approach it?
Yeah, so a couple of things there. I think first, like confidence is everything, and confidence comes from knowledge. So like going through training first, like how to break down the different parts of a cold call, structuring your calendar with like role-playing call blocks. It's like between these times, I've got a little egg timer on my desk. Nothing else matters in the world. Even if a customer's asking for a DocuSign, they can wait 40 minutes. They're not going to go and sign with somebody else. Like get some routine going, right? But start with some confidence, and confidence is going to come from, I feel like I understand the structure of a cold call. I know I'm not going to win everybody over. I know what to say at this part. If they ask me this or they say this, I know what to say back. It might not be perfect, but I've got a good area. But for me, like from a coaching perspective, I like the rep to figure things out. So like be very self-aware. So I built this 3x3x3 framework a few years ago, where basically they listen to 3 calls, 3 cold calls, 3 discovery calls, 3 demos, whatever it is. They listen to 3 cold calls. They write down 3 things that went really well, 3 things that didn't go so well. And if they had to pick one thing, what would they pick and why? What are they going to do about it? How can I hold them accountable for it? And how will we measure success? And get them to come up with the problem. Otherwise, I'm just like, hey, Sarah, you're making loads of cold calls, or you're not making loads of cold calls. I think you should probably do something about it. You sound great on the phone, but you're crap at handling objections. And they're like, that's really good knowledge. But I think if reps become self-aware when they're actually in that moment,
yes, it's different.
They're looking out for it, right? Yeah. And they're like, when that person stops talking, I'm hearing something. When that person stops talking, I'm not going to interrupt them, but I think I know what James is going to say. I think I know what my manager's going to say. So because we've been going over it, right? And now I'm self-aware. I'm starting to look out for these things because these are the structures that we're looking at when we're doing cold call reviews. I now know what I feel comfortable and confident what I'm going to say back. But I think a lot of it is leading with data. I can't remember where I read this a long time ago, but it's like in data we trust. It takes all of the emotion out of the conversation.
Yeah, it's just factual.
Yeah, you might not like what it looks like, right? But it's factual. You nailed it. And at least we can see where we're falling short rather than going, I think it's objection handling. It might not be objection handling. It might be we're not inspiring them to change in any good storytelling, which is why we're getting objections.
Interesting.
So use the data to inform it, get the reps buying into that data. It doesn't have to be like overwhelming analysis paralysis, but like a couple of rows of data, a couple of reports or whatever, get them to buy into it. And I think it's a different conversation rather than, hey, Sarah, you got a great work ethic, but you just suck at making cold calls. So why don't you do these 15 things? It's like when you go and get a golfing lesson. I've stopped doing it now. You can't fix my swing, but you're with the golfing person. They're like, try to do these like 7 different adjustments.
Yes.
And it gets worse and you're like, oh, this is just too much. Like, give me one instruction. I'll go away for a week. I'll hit 100 balls. I'll come back. Let's see if we've moved the needle. Okay, maybe we'll change something else. Is it my stance? Okay, let's pick that one thing. Let me go hit 100 balls. Let me come back. Okay, so I've got new grip, new stance. It's not that. Right? Am I lifting my head? Well, let's get that in check. I'll go away, I'll hit 100 balls and come back. And like just break down everything by looking at the data and like ruling that stuff out. And over time, you usually kind of make some good improvements.
I love that. And so, James, just as we close, let's do our tick fire round of questions. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
If you could have your own podcast, who would be your first guest?
It's not related to sales, but I think either Tiger Woods.
Okay, golf, back to the swing. Okay, got it.
Yeah, back to the swing. Because he'd probably be able to teach me a load as well, right? Yeah. So it'd be good. I'd love to hear like his story about like, he went through back operations, came back and, very gritty, very persistent, that kind of stuff. But also I'd pick his brains for obviously some top tips and see if he could actually help me hit a golf ball straight. Okay. Or Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson would be pretty cool to spend some time with. Especially now, like where he's a little bit older and he's a little bit,
less of a maniac.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think he's still got it in the bag, but yeah.
Mike Tyson is a special human. Like his competitiveness is something that needs to be studied. Like he's amazing.
Yeah, totally. I don't know if you've seen his. He started this like ear, like it's like a gummy in the shape of an ear with Evander Holyfield, and it's got a chunk missing. I actually didn't believe it when I saw it. First, because obviously he chewed his ear off, big chunk, and the shape of the gummy has got a bit of the ear missing.
No.
Yeah, and they've gone into business together. It's like a cannabis thing.
Together.
Honestly, yeah, together. They're like good pals now. I'm wondering if they set this whole thing up. I mean, it's a bit of chew my ear off. That's a bit far, right? But
that's wild. That's wild.
But he would be cool to talk to.
Okay. What are the top 3 things that you look for in the people that you work with? So you do coaching. So you're not necessarily hiring, but what are the top 3 things that you'd look for in someone that you're coaching?
I think it, again, comes back to context, right? Obviously, if it's a rep at Salesforce, it's very different to a rep at a very early stage startup. I think we all talk about coachability, but I don't think enough people actually like qualify or test it. So like a way that I like to do it, still to this day when I'm doing some consulting, I kind of interview a lot of reps, is to bring them into, so like one of my AE roles, they brought me into the office. It was a second stage interview. I had no idea what was happening. I think they deliberately broke the elevator. So I had to walk up like 15 flights of stairs. They stuck me in a meeting room and they said, bit of paper, here's your brief. You got 15 minutes through that glass door over there. There's 3 regional directors of sales. You're going to go in there and pitch them some like complex IT stuff. And yeah, you got 15 minutes, kind of go for it. And they weren't expecting me to be like super like clued up in all of the products and things like that. They were testing my intelligence, like how quickly could I read a brief and then build a talk track or a framework and a pitch. And then they were testing my coachability by saying, hey, you did this really well. Next time we'd actually like to see you do this differently. Would you be all right if you went back into that room for 5 minutes and came back and did it again? And what they were looking for, obviously I didn't realize this until I became a sales lead and started to recruit, but they were looking for my coachability. If they gave me feedback, like how can they move the needle with me in 5 minutes? And if they can do it like a big, like move the needle quite a bit now, what can they do in like 90 days? So from like a coachability perspective, it's not like how do you take feedback? Can I actually test it in the interview process? And it's going to de-risk or like help me avoid mishires. So intelligence, coachability, obviously curiosity is important. It's amazing how many times I say, hey Sarah, why are we having this conversation today? They're like, my company sucks, there's no training, there's no coaching. And then when I say, hey, you've got the mic, ask me any question, they don't ask any questions about training or coaching.
Right.
Is that really the reason then? Because for me, being curious and I'm like moving away or I'm thinking about moving away from a company for those reasons, that'd be my very first question. I'd be like, hey, coaching's top of mind for me. I don't get any of it. I'm hungry to be great. Can you bring up a coaching plan with one of the reps on your team and show me how you landed on that area to coach on, what you're doing about it and how things are going? So I think like curiosity is important, but in this economy, definitely I think adaptability is important. Like when we run a play, we build a hypothesis, we run a test for a month, doesn't work out. A lot of reps are like, I've done it this way forever. Right, well, that doesn't work anymore. So we need the game's changed.
Yeah. Right,
and sales a bit like fashion. Things come in and come out all of the time. So we have to be able to adapt when we need to and not just have I think that comes back into feedback, right? Like we can't take feedback and they don't want to do anything differently. So yeah, intelligence, coachability and adaptability probably are the top 3 today for me.
Awesome. And last question, at this stage of your life, what is your definition of success?
now spending lots of time with my 7-month-old baby, which I am really struggling to peel myself away, because I love what I do, love selling, very I get a little bit, this is going to sound very strange, but I hate Friday because the weekend's here and it means like no one else is. Sounds so
no
strange.
One ever. Yeah.
Honestly, like there's no one there like I can chat to, or I can work with, I can hop on calls with, right? Which is good because then I can spend some time with the boy, and I try not to work Fridays. If I do work a Friday, I don't work a Wednesday usually, so I can spend some time dropping him off at nursery and do that kind of good stuff. But yeah, spending good quality time with him. But at the same time, like I genuinely love what I do. So I find it really hard to pull myself away from this desk sometimes.
James, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I know it'll be helpful for a lot of people too. So thank you so much.
I hope so. Thanks for having me on.